And so barrenness of the womb, becomes a common trial in the story of the Bible. Have you ever noticed how often it shows up? Have you ever noticed how often it shows up? Beginning with all three of the patriarchs, it is a theme. Sarah was barren, Genesis 11:30. Rebekah was barren, Genesis 25:21. And Rachel was barren, Genesis 29:31. But also, the wife of Manoah was barren, Judges 13:2. Ruth was apparently barren. She'd been married 10 years and no children. That's Ruth 1, verse 4. And Hannah was barren, 1 Samuel 1:2. Culminating, we might say, that theme culminating with Elizabeth here in Luke's gospel. Luke chapter 1, verse 7. But the stories illustrate at least two things. First, the pain and helplessness of barrenness. So this is the first, the pain and helplessness of barrenness. Listen to this from Proverbs 30. There are three things that are never satisfied. Yea, four things say not, it is enough. The grave and the barren womb, the earth that is not filled with water, and the fire that saith not, it is enough. Barrenness is like a festering wound, a constant ache, like the loss of a loved one, like a grave, like a desert. It aches. But second, in every one of these stories, in every one of these stories of a barren woman, the helpless emptiness is repeatedly interrupted by the joy of God's provision. In every one of these stories, you have a barren woman who gives birth. Barrenness is a theme, but so is the overturning of the barrenness. In every one of these stories, that helpless emptiness is repeatedly interrupted by the joy of God's provision. Psalm 113, verse 9 says this, He maketh the barren woman to keep a house, and to be a joyful mother of children. Praise ye the Lord. That's Psalm 113, verse 9. That's equally part of this theme. So there it is. Oh, there's another. There's another. There's another. And yet it's almost as if, as you're reading through, and you come across and it says, and she was old and barren, you know it's going to happen. You know where the story's going. You know what God's going to do. Because that's the other part of this theme. He maketh the barren woman to keep house and to be a joyful mother of children. Praise ye the Lord. All of this is one of the signs of the barrenness of sin and the fruitfulness of salvation. This is one way of picturing the barrenness of sin, the barrenness of death. In our sins and in our death, in our cursed state, we are fruitless. We are helpless, and we are lost, and we are stuck, and there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do, and it's a terrible place to be. It's a terrible place to be. And at the same time, it's also the sign of the fruitfulness of God's salvation. It's one of the signs of the barrenness of sin, the emptiness of sin, the futility of sin, the helpless, all of it, the impossibility of sin, and then, in its face, the fruitfulness of God's salvation. The fruitfulness of God's salvation.